I'm Mike Helgren here with Amy Yancey. We've been listening to the final closing arguments today in the Gun Trace Task Force trial. We heard from Jennifer Wicks, who represents Detective Marcus Taylor, and we also heard a rebuttal close from Leo Wise, who is a federal prosecutor. And Amy, your thoughts on that?
Remarkable words from him. He was speaking directly to the jury, who was hanging on to his every word. He basically said, don't pay attention to what the defense attorneys are telling you. Purcell knew what he was doing. The defense strategy was clear, trying to separate him from the pack, show that he did not have the same intention as the other officers, some of which have already admitted to their culpability. The prosecutor saying he knew exactly what he was doing. He's just as guilty as the rest of them, and he should be found guilty because, like the rest of them, he abused his badge, basically.
Well, and what we heard from Detective Taylor was that the government witnesses, including 4 officers who have pleaded guilty in this case, were just not credible. She says that they just want a reduced sentence. She said that the government tried to bring you into the depths of the criminal underbelly in Baltimore to try to make their case, but that these guys are just liars, that the evidence just doesn't add up, that there is reasonable doubt. And essentially what jurors have to decide is 4 federal charges, and the jury instructions were extraordinarily complex. They've got to decide whether Purcell and Taylor are guilty of RICO conspiracy, racketeering conspiracy, and also a RICO violation. That encompasses the overtime fraud and robberies. Then they'll have to list which robberies, what overtime or wire fraud they think that they were guilty of. And there's also Hobbs Act, which involves interfering with interstate commerce because they stole U.S. currency. And there's a final charge of using a firearm in the commission of a violent crime. So there's a lot for them to digest here. The jury consists of 9 women and 3 men.
Purcell and Taylor basically took a big gamble by leaving it up to the jury, and now it's up to them. It's in their hands.
And they face life in prison if they're convicted. It is rare, we heard from a University of Maryland law professor, that an officer would be convicted. However, this case he thought could be different, and he said some of that is because we heard testimony from 4 officers who were part of that gun trace task force. So right now, we're here outside the courthouse. We are on verdict watch. We'll bring you any developments as they happen.
A lot of people calling this a landmark case. It will decide how people feel about corruption in the police department, and some are already using it as a representation of that corruption.